All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Beast Wars Cybershark, specifically the 2022 Walmart reissue, which is generally mostly the same as the original toy. There's like a couple differences, like apparently the green spots on the shark mode are a little bit darker on this one than they were on the original. I don't have the original, obviously, to compare it to, because if I had the original, I wouldn't have bought this figure. It's really funny, actually, how, like, a lot of the reissues of the Beast Wars figures that have been hitting Walmarts are actually a lot of gaps in my original Beast Wars collection. Like, I didn't have Optimus or Megatron or Scorponok. I didn't have Cybershark. Wolfang is supposed to be another one that's coming, and I don't have that one. Whereas I really do have a lot of the original, at least like the first 2 years of the toy line. So it's cool to be seeing some ones that I haven't actually seen in person before. But yeah, here we have Cybershark, who obviously turns into a nice hammerhead shark here. And yeah, it's a really nice shark mode. It's got these nice sort of like metallic turquoise spots all over the body, which really pop and definitely give it that sheen that like a wet creature would have. And like I said, apparently these are a bit darker on the reissue than they were on the original. I don't know. I think it looks really good no matter what. It's got the nice kind of white underside here. You can kind of see some like robot leg stuff happen under here, but since it's the underside and at least like the knee spikes here end up being like the sort of bottom fins of the shark, I think it still works pretty well. In terms of articulation in this mode, you don't get a ton. The little fins here are on ball joints, and that's really it. There is a hinge up here on the top of the head, but it doesn't really act as a mouth joint because the jaw actually stays where it is. This is a like part of the gimmick for robot mode, which you can use in this shark mode as well. It's got this little trigger up here, and when you hit it, you ready for this super amazing action here? Another difference about the original to the reissue here is apparently they've loosened the springs a little bit, probably for safety reasons, but that particular motion there is just really funny because sometimes it doesn't even come off the the end of the shark head. So yeah, you could have this weird sort of like eyeless zombie robot shark here. I think that's pretty cool. The other gimmick here is this little back fin here. If you press that, it'll flip out this claw, which that kind of works even for shark mode, having the claw on the tail there, but definitely works a little bit better visually like that. But yeah, you can like kind of place it down like that. You just have to balance it on the top fins here. If you have these in any other orientation, it'll just kind of sit like that and not look that good. I find that there's a bit of a gap here on the underbelly where like these two pieces don't ever really stay closed and flush together. Like you can get it kind of close, but I don't know. It's not too big a deal either way. Just something that's worth mentioning. But yeah, in terms of size comparisons, for the standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, just an average size deluxe. Here he is with the reissue of Optimus Primal, just so you can see what they look like together. Very cool. Here he is with the Transmetal Cybershark figure, who doesn't really stand up that well, just so you can see. Obviously, one's a hammerhead and one is not a hammerhead, but they still look pretty cool together. And then for another hammerhead comparison, here he is with Beast Machine's Hammer Strike, who is on the verge of disintegration pretty much all the time. But still, looks pretty cool. This is obviously a much more like realistic skinned shark, and this is more of like a Cyber Shark. So it's funny that he's the one with the name Cyber Shark when he's really the more realistic shark. But still pretty cool to have a few different sharks in the collection. For transformation, you can sort of leave everything attached. There are some pieces that come off to be accessories in robot mode, so we can just take those off now. Like the tail here just pegs into this port right here with this little peg right here, so we can take that off to the side, and might as well just unspring the head right now as well. And then this is really the main body of the actual robot. So the feet here, they're not really tabbed into the fists. They just have these little pegs that kind of sit in the fist holes. Like the pegs are actually much smaller than the fist holes, so it doesn't really peg in. It just kind of like is a guide for where it's supposed to sit. So you just undo those and then take these two shells here, just fold them out to the side. I usually take the fins and just kind of fold them more in towards the body itself. Then the arms here, we can rotate out, and then take this whole section here. It folds up like that, and then fold it down like this. And this peg that was previously pegged in here for shark mode is now going to peg in here for robot mode, just like that. Then fold up his feet. And there you have the main base robot mode for Cybershark. And yeah, he looks pretty cool here. I love his whole sort of like mean, angry expression, even though he is in fact a maximal. You can see very cool head sculpt there with the open mouth with the sharp teeth. Very cool looking. I will say it's I don't really love the aesthetic where you can kind of just like clearly see where his neck cuts off and you can see the ball joint there. Like I wish that was hidden a little bit more, since you can just clearly see that his head ends right there. Not the biggest deal, but I thought that was kind of funny. He continues the turquoise spots on his head here, which is nice. Now, the big thing with this figure that honestly was like one of the things that, you know, was part of the reason that I never bothered trying to pick up this figure to begin with is so he's got these pieces, which are pretty much his weapons in robot mode, but there's really no way to elegantly store them. Like if you want to store the top of the shark head, you can just leave it where it was plugged in. Just leave it in this gun here and have it folded down. And, you know, that doesn't look terrible, but it does look, I would say, considerably worse than his look without that there. And then this, like, the only place you can really store it is to just kind of like awkwardly peg it back in where it was in shark mode and have it hanging off the back there. And it is possible to get him to stand with that off the ground and have everything notionally stored like that. You have to kind of like angle his feet out a little bit, because if you leave them straight forward, then the ankle tilts just like give under the pressure because they're not very strong. So if you angle the feet out like that, then, you know, that kind of puts them acting against each other so you can actually stand up. But as you can see, it's not like, I don't know, the most elegant thing in the world. It's, you know, it's not the worst storage in terms of like Beast Wars figures, because I feel like that was an issue with a lot of Beast Wars figures, especially the early ones, but it's not great. But, you know, that being said, if the weapon storage is not something you care as much about and you just want him like holding the weapons, I do think he looks pretty cool with these weapons. You've obviously got the claw weapon here, which he can hold like a normal, you know, up like this, and that looks okay. You can kind of fold it up so it's more of like a sword claw thing of some kind, or have it the other way. Neither of those look particularly good. I think the best way to do it is to have him hold it underhand, which is kind of, you know, how he holds it in like some of the promotional images too. And I do think that's the best way. It's still kind of an awkward weapon, but whatever. And then the head here, aside from just being like a missile for this front cannon, which I'll talk about in a bit, like you can obviously do that and shoot it out that way. More of really like a weak battering ram than an actual missile, since it does not shoot very far. But what's cool about this guy is all of the missiles he comes with, actually the shaft of them fits his hand, so you can actually plug it in as like I guess a hammer, hammerhead hammer. It can't stay totally straight in his hand just because the backs here tend to bump into it, but yeah, you can get it mostly upright, and I think that looks fairly cool. In terms of additional weaponry, he has two missiles that are hidden up here, which you kind of have to push from the underside, and I'll just take one out for now. And these are pretty cool because they have little little shark faces sculpted onto the side of them, if I can get it to focus there. And I think that looks pretty cool. Obviously, you can fold out his little chest cannon here and plug those in. Since they're not as heavy as the hammerhead thing, they do shoot a little bit better. Still not crazy. Like obviously the spring isn't as strong as the original toy was, but you know it's still cool to have that action. But what's also cool about these, and why this guy's just loaded up with weapons, is you can have him hold these as well. And what I sort of like to do, because of the like grooving here to plug them into the gun. They don't actually plug in all the way to his fist. So what I like to do is take them both and plug them in either side as kind of like a staff, and I think that looks really cool as well. Obviously, you have to kind of pick and choose which weapons he's holding, because he's got 4 things to kind of hold on to, and he can't hold on to all of them at once. Well, maybe you could actually, if you if you wanted to make it look stupid and plug it in like that. He can hold all 4 things at once. I don't think that looks particularly good, but he could do that. But, I like the options there where this guy is really just like loaded up with weapons. I just really, for myself, kind of wish that they stored a little bit better, because I don't always like to have my figures holding the weapons. Obviously, the missiles store just fine because they're, totally unobtrusive in both modes. But I wish there was something a little bit better to do about these. Like, I can live with this, even though I think he looks a lot better without that there. But the tail, I just wish there was maybe just like a hole in one of the fins or something like that, so you could just plug it in like that, or a hole like here, a hole on the back fin there. Just, there's a lot of ways that it could have been designed for this to store a little bit better if it was a design intention, but obviously it wasn't. So, whatever. I guess that's the best that we got. It's hard to fault it too much, because it is, this is a new reissue, but it is an old toy. And at least there's something that I can kind of do with it, even if it's not the most elegant thing. But that does suck a little. That is my main lasting complaint about this figure, because otherwise he's great. Otherwise he's a lot of fun. And, I do wish this stored on the back somewhere too, because I think he just looks so much better with the silver there as part of his chest, rather than the awkward hammerhead bit sticking out there. But really, as the figure is, I think he looks best while wielding his weapons. It's just a shame that you really don't have the option so much with this figure, but still cool nonetheless. In terms of articulation, here, I'll take off the weapons here. The head is on a ball joint. You can see it right there. So you can see pretty much the way it moves. It's got a pretty good amount of wiggle back and forth, but obviously rotation as well. The shoulders are on ball joints, so you can rotate them up. Obviously, they bump into the back fins here. It's got a bicep swivel, very deep knee elbow bend, even though that's not even for transformation, so that's nice. Nothing at the waist. Hips on ball joints, so you can get a pretty good range there. They're a little bit loose, but not the end of the world. Thigh swivel, maybe a degree or two under 90 at the knee, and then his feet can kind of tilt back and forth, but not side to side. The ankle tilt, aside from the figures with ball joints, but ankle tilts weren't really much of a thing in Beast Wars. But yeah, no, pretty good articulation overall. Beast Wars is really when the figures started getting like good in terms of articulation, since they incorporated a lot of ball joints into the designs. In terms of comparisons, here he is again with Sideswipe. So you can see he's pretty much matches up as an average size Deluxe nowadays. Maybe a little bit taller and definitely a bit more plastic with all the extra stuff going on there. But height-wise, that's about where he's at. Here he is with the reissue of Optimus Primal again, just so you can see what the two of them look like together, since he's a Maximal, and there he is with the Maximal leader there. Here he is again with Transmetal Cybershark, and it's cool to have the two of these guys because, really, I think that in terms of Cybershark as a character, this is really more like the mold that is associated with Cybershark, whereas the Transmetal Cybershark is now retroactively much more familiar with like Skybite from RID, since he actually showed up in a television show. So I feel like the look of the Transmetal Cybershark is much more associated with Skybite nowadays. So if you want them to be different characters, I figure like this mold is Skybite, this mold is Cybershark. Obviously he's not Skybite colors, but it's a little weird to have like, if you want two different characters that aren't repaints of each other, then it's nice to have him as a Cybershark, if that makes any sense to anybody. And then here he is again with Hammer Strike from Beast Machines. As you can see, very different shark aesthetics there, even though they both turn into hammerheads. Very, very, very different robot modes, but obviously a lot of the robot modes in Beast Machines were all just kind of weird in a way that I like, but definitely weird, whereas Cybershark is much more of a typical robot. But yeah, he's a pretty good figure, all things considered. And I guess also I should mention, like, if you want to fold the wings out like that to have him have more of like a bat wing look. You could do that. I tend to have the fins just kind of folded up against the body as much as they'll go, but that's another option. But yeah, no, pretty fun figure overall. Again, he looks great in both modes. I like the how he has so many weapons. He's got pretty good articulation. Just my one lasting complaint about him is just, man, I wish those weapons stored in a more elegant way. I don't mind him having big shark weapons. I like that all the weapons store nicely in alt mode because they're parts of the shark. But what sucks about a figure like this compared to some modern figures that don't have good weapon storage is like with modern figures, usually it's just a matter of like, oh, they plug an extra gun onto the top of a car or something, and if I don't like that, I can just put the gun in a box and pretend it doesn't have weapons. Whereas Cybershark is really tied to his weapons because you couldn't have a shark mode without them. It's just a shame that they don't store a little bit better. But that's okay. It is a figure from quite a few years ago at this point, so I think we can give it some slack for that. At least there's something you can do with them. It's just not very pretty. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. Great little figure. I love the maroon sort of like inner shark paint on the halves there. I think it works really well. He kind of reminds me of like a scaled up version of the flip formers from Beast Wars, just because of like, he's got these two shells that fold up like that, and though he doesn't have any springs or anything for his transformation, it is a pretty similar transformation scheme. So I'm wondering if maybe that was like a design at one point, and then he ended up being turned into a larger figure that you had to do it manually. I don't know, just for some food for thought. But yeah, there we have him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have the Walmart reissue from 2022 of Beast Wars Cybershark.